And I believe I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
Thank you, Dr. Graft and panelists. Now we'll turn our attention to one of the 20% of rare diseases that do not have a genetic component, neuromyelitis optica, a rare disease that both destroys quality of life and takes lives as well.
I gotta do a couple of things. I'm gonna do it as quick as I can, but I gotta look in your eyes, okay? I know you feel awful.
She told us neuromyelitis optica, and we had never heard of it. She explained to us that it used to be thought it was a severe form of multiple sclerosis, that it's a very difficult disease, and proceeded to tell us that there could be times where Colin could be paralyzed in the future, he could lose his vision again, and just varying degrees of disability that he could have.
Colin McDaniel was diagnosed at age 5 with neuromyelitis optica, NMO for short. It's an autoimmune disease that attacks the myelin insulation of nerve fibers of the optic nerves and spinal cord. It can strike from childhood, like Colin, into early middle age. There is no cure, and effective treatments are few.
Because right now his stomach's not working, he can't digest food. So that tube goes down to his intestine, and we're hoping that he can have the plasmapheresis and his stomach will get better. Colin has so many medicines that he's on. He's also not able to go to the bathroom on his own, so he has to be capped every 4 hours. It takes both of us really working with him around the clock.
So are you, Mama?
We're looking for something at this point that's going to give him more time in between those flare-ups, more time for him to enjoy what he can of his life.
Colin McDaniel lost his battle with NMO after a 4-year struggle. He was 9 years old.
I went to Tibet to do some volunteer work for a couple months, and about midway through the first month, I just started going blind in my left eye. Started going down like a black curtain, and it hurt too. It hurt a lot to move it. I started losing the sensation in my feet, and it sort of worked from the toes up to probably right about here in terms of paralysis and numbness. I could still walk, but I would say I was shuffling. And half of my body was freezing cold, and half of it was burning hot. And overall, it just kind of felt like someone was, ripping off my skin because all my nerves were exposed and feeling that.
Candace Coffey had just graduated from college when she was diagnosed with NMO.
I'm not ready to give up my independence yet. It means so much to me, and I fight to keep it. That causes a lot of grief sometimes, too, because I know my parents, I'm like a China doll to them. They still want me to have my life. They want to see me as a young adult get to do the things I love. So we kind of go back and forth on that. And I'm stubborn. They know that I'm so stubborn. And at this point, I'm not willing or ready to give up.
Being a patient with a rare disease is lonely and isolating. And often it feels like we're screaming from a mountaintop trying to get the attention of anyone who will listen and help us.
Candace never gave up fighting. She became an advocate for NMO research and funding. She gave birth to twin boys 2 years ago. But last year, she too lost her battle with NMO at age 36.
I want to see the cure happen, and I want to see the positive impact it makes on the patient community and in the world of NMO and rare disease. That's all, thanks.
After Victoria Jackson's daughter was diagnosed with NMO in 2008, Victoria and her husband, Bill Guthey, founded the Guthey-Jackson Charitable Foundation, which is dedicated to funding research that will one day lead to cures for NMO. In just 8 years, the foundation has emerged as one of the leading charities in the autoimmune space and has pioneered a new scientific research model to yield effective, real-world outcomes. While Allie and Victoria couldn't be here today, we will hear about one of the potential therapies that gives hopes to those suffering with NMO. It's in development due to the generous support of the Guthey-Jackson Foundation. Today, there is no FDA-approved drug that's available to treat NMO or to have any effect on the eventual fatal course of the disease. Dr. Neil Warma, President and CEO of Opexa Therapeutics, is trying to change that. He's here to tell us about the company's immunotherapy technology in Phase 2b trial for people with secondary progressive multiple sclerosis and the OPX12, which is Opexa's immunotherapy in development for NMO. This therapy is made from a patient's own cells, which after being injected into the patient is designed to protect the body from having any more NMO attacks. I will now let Dr. Warma explain the science behind the NMO therapy. Dr. Warma, will you please join?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the kind introduction, Robin, and especially thank you for the privilege and honor of being back here for the second time. So on behalf of all the staff and employees at Opexa, I'm here to talk a little bit about the progress since last time, but also provide you with an update and some progress on what we've been doing in the clinic as a cell therapy company. If I can advance the slides here. Just to keep it in perspective, I think there's a number of themes that have been raised this morning. I think one of the first comments made by His Eminence Cardinal Rebalancing this morning about the importance of research and the necessity of doing research into to treat multiple conditions that are currently untreatable. Just to again put it in perspective, last time I was invited here by the Council, by the STEM for Life Foundation, we had just started our MS trial. And as Robin mentioned, this is in secondary progressive MS, for which there are no treatments. So that was about 3 years ago when we started the phase 2 trial. And I'm happy to say now we are 3 years later and we're soon to report on that trial. And this is a big phase 2 trial in 200 patients across the US and Canada, all with secondary progressive MS. So it's been a 3-year journey. Reports out in a few months, hopefully with positive results. But in that time, just to demonstrate that this is a long process, as I said, 200 patients. This one trial runs around $50 million, 50 million to run this one trial. And it's a 3-year process of waiting and conducting the trial. So it certainly is a process, this thing we call drug development. So Opexa Therapeutics, we're a platform technology. And I think a lot of the comments we're hearing about platform technologies, and essentially it means it's a process or a technology that we believe is applicable to numerous diseases. So multiple autoimmune diseases, whether it's MS or NMO, we believe our platform can be applicable to type 1 diabetes, to Crohn's disease, to rheumatoid arthritis. So our focus at the company is autoimmune disease. You hear a lot about cancer. So this is the modulation of the immune system to treat autoimmune diseases. And again, personalized medicine comes up all the time. We truly develop personalized therapies. These are T-cell vaccines, as we call them. Each individual receives a truly personalized T-cell therapy that's tailored to his or her disease profile. Again, immunotherapy, you hear this all the time, the modulation, manipulation of the immune system can be a very powerful way of treating disease. It's just, we're just scratching the surface, and you can hear about all these novel approaches and different approaches. You know, at the end of the day, it will be the data that speaks on our behalf. So the more data we generate in a controlled fashion, that will really demonstrate and show the proof that these therapies can have on enormous number of conditions. That's linked to rare orphan diseases. Obviously, I've gotten to know the Guthrie-Jackson Foundation very well. Victoria Jackson, Bill Guthrie, and their daughter Allie. You know, a very sad case, but hopefully we're providing a little bit of hope for these individuals and their phenomenal family, and I'm honored to know them, and unfortunately they can't be here this afternoon. But again, we've touched on that this morning as well, the challenges around developing therapies for rare diseases based on the commercial opportunity. And I think one of the themes that keeps coming back is this idea of collaboration, and whether it's among the biotech companies, pharma industry, also with the patients, the advocacy groups, the foundations, the philanthropists, the investor. It is a community, a holistic approach. So again, just touching on the title of the talk is T cells and their relevance, importance in treating autoimmune disease. And just to touch on our therapy, and it's relevant for many different therapies. We're talking about an autoimmune disease, and as you know, that the autoimmune disease is when the body starts attacking itself. The T cells generally comprise the immune system, and in an autoimmune disease, a small number of these T cells become activated, they become rogue cells, and they start attacking different parts of the body depending on the autoimmune disease. And all of us healthy individuals have these activated rogue T cells, but a healthy immune system will catch them, eliminate them before they escape to do their damage. But in an immune-compromised individual, the immune system can't protect the individual from attacking itself. So what we're trying to do, and what others we're hearing as well, we're trying to rebalance this or restore the function of the immune system to allow the body to attack itself. And I've developed a couple of slides here to try to bring that into perspective. I'm not going to get overly science-y here. I'm happy to answer scientific questions if you so wish after this. And I'm responsible for the animation. One of the things that CEOs have to be responsible for now is creating animated slides as well. So you can see in this presentation those blue cells, the MRTC, those are the activated, the rogue cells. And this could be really in any autoimmune disease, whether it's NMO or multiple sclerosis. This is a little bit more depictive of MS, but essentially you have those activated T cells. The tissue that's targeted in MS for destruction are the nerve fibers in the brain, the myelin sheath, the protective coating around the nerve fibers in the brain. So what you have, if this works, brilliant. These T cells will cross into the CNS, into the central nervous system. They bind to a specific peptide, to a specific receptor, and then you get these lightning charges, these red lightning bolts depict a release of proteins, cytokines, that will destroy the protective coating around the nerve fiber, the myelin sheath, and they destroy those oligocells, oligodendroglial cells. And the oligocells produce new myelin. So you've got this chronic destructive process where these small number of activated T cells do this damage over the course of time. And in the case of NMO, it's severely debilitating, in the end leading to death. In the case of NMO, MS, similarly can eventually lead to death. So this is a process that takes place in an autoimmune disease where the T cells attack itself. So what we're looking to do is identify those rogue T cells. Whether it's any autoimmune disease, we identify those rogue T cells, in this case those blue cells. We increase the number in our facility. We manufacture the product ourselves. We're based out of Houston. We increase the number of T cells, and we administer them back to that same individual. So what we're doing is presenting the bad T cells, and they've been crippled before they go back into the body. So we're presenting these bad T cells back to the individual. You can see there's a subcutaneous injection back to the individual, and what we're trying to do is teach the immune system that these cells that we're injecting, you're supposed to recognize these as harmful, almost like foreign invaders. So we give 5 injections over the course of the year, presenting these crippled but bad T cells to the immune system. And now you've got these red cells, these T regulatory cells that say, aha. So every time I see one of these cells that looks exactly like this, I need to get rid of it. And because the cells have been crippled before they've been, attenuated or crippled before they've been injected, they slough off and die. But you've got now this primed immune system that says, every time I see something that looks exactly like this, I need to get rid of it. So then over the course of days and months, you have these pink cells, these regulatory cells that say, aha, there's one of these bad blue cells I've now been trained to identify. So they seek them out, whether it's in the periphery or in the central nervous system, and eliminate those cells. They remove them from circulation. And that prevents further destruction of the myelin sheath, further destruction of the astrocytes in the case of NMO, and preventing further damage. So we're excited about the potential. So you've essentially taught the immune system how to recognize these harmful cells. And again, this is specific for every autoimmune disease. And so each disease has its own product because each cell is specific to a target tissue, if you will. So again, the data has been remarkable in MS. We've run 5 clinical trials, and these are controlled clinical trials. We've shown the ability to reverse disease progression in the relapsing or remitting population, and we've also shown that in the secondary progressive MS population, in those patients we treated, 80% of those patients showed no further signs of disease progression. So we're excited about the efficacy, and from a side effect perspective, again, what's important here and how we're differentiated to a number of other autoimmune drugs out there is that we're teaching the body's immune system to selectively target only those bad cells. So this isn't the broad-based immunosuppressant approach where you wipe out the whole immune system. This is selective targeting by the body's immune system of only those harmful or damaging T cells. So side effect profile is superb, efficacy looks exciting as well. So again, just simplistically, as we've said, we take blood from a patient, we expand the T cells, and we administer back to the patient. This is the autologous cell therapy that we've heard about numerous times today. I won't go into that, but essentially it's patient-specific. The seed material, blood from a patient, expand T cells, attenuate back to the individual. And this is done for every individual in our trials and eventually commercially as well. And I think interesting, the stories we hear from patients, I think, are the most motivating. They certainly are to us at the company. And these are comments after our previous MS trial, comments that came back to us in the company from patients who were treated in that trial, who felt that it was important to write back to us to say, this is what I felt during the course of the trial. So remarkable effects. People have been up out of their wheelchairs. This drug is a miracle to us. So this keeps us coming back for more, so to speak, keeps us motivated to keep progressing, to keep raising the money, to keep working on MS, but also other diseases beyond MS. And this came to us exploring beyond MS, what are the diseases we could theoretically go after from our platform. And this chart just presents, there's a number of T-cell autoimmune diseases that we theoretically could go after. We kind of filtered it down based on the evaluation criteria. Neuromyelitis optica came across as one that was very interesting to us for a number of different reasons. You saw the video at the beginning, NMO, an autoimmune disease. Again, you've got the same T cell that's responsible for this whole destructive process. The mechanism of action is a little bit more complicated for NMO than MS, but essentially it's that T cell that's conductor of the orchestra that drives the disease progression. So what we're looking to do in NMO, as with MS, is selectively target and destroy that T cell, breaking down that destructive process and restoring balance within the immune system. And again, NMO has no current treatments to date. It is a rare orphan disease. We've heard about that all morning. Affects less than 200,000 patients, significantly less for NMO. In the US, there's probably around 10,000 patients with NMO in the US. So this was an ideal target for us to go after, a novel approach, this selective targeting of the T cell. Again, from our perspective, to differentiate as a small biotech company, we need to. So being the only company out there developing personalized therapies, selectively targeting the T cell is something that we're proud of. And one of the, as I mentioned at the outset, this idea of holistic, collaborative approach is absolutely critical to us. And this little graphic shows the various stakeholders that are involved in moving a trial forward. We certainly got the patients at the center of all this, the companies developing the therapies. We've got the physicians, the foundations, the patient advocacy groups. It was important to us to go and speak to the treating physicians before we even, before we as a company went public with the treatment. We went to the neurologist and said, we've got this really interesting, we feel interesting approach to treat NMO, but you're the expert, you're the treating physician. Do you think it holds water? Do you think it makes sense? And they loved the approach for the T cell, knockout of the T cell. We then sat with the patients and said, you will be the one that will be taking this therapy, if and when we make it to market. Is it something that appeals to you? Here's how it's administered. It's 5 injections over the course of the year. The side effect profile looks wonderful in the MS trials. Is it something that you would support? And the patients thought it was terrific. The side effect profile is great. The efficacy from another disease, autoimmune disease, looks terrific. But it's important to get out and speak to them early in the process, because what we want to know from them is, what's the trial design here? We think we know how to design a clinical trial. We've done this, a bunch of times before. But again, you get experts coming in and saying, no, we would do it this way. You get patients saying, we don't want to participate in a trial like that. We'd rather you tweak it this way. So getting all that information early in the process is absolutely critical. You've also got here as well the reimbursement agencies, getting out there and talking to the payers, the healthcare payers, the reimbursement folks at the beginning of the day. You see some of the numbers, and we talked about that this morning. The cost of therapy, the amount, the cost to develop this. As I said, the one trial we're running, we've run 5 now, but the one trial we're doing now in MS was at least $50 million. So that money has to come from somewhere. We need to raise it. We're grateful to Bill Guthey and Victoria Jackson for their support in this study as well, but it's the coming together of all these stakeholders that's absolutely critical if we're going to develop therapies for unmet medical needs. And as a company, as a CEO of a company, that's what interests us, is diseases with unmet medical needs. We don't want to be a Me Too company coming along. We want to develop those for truly severe, serious diseases with unmet medical needs. So this concentric circle of groups here, absolutely critical to moving forward. So again, just coming back in the last couple of slides here, coming back to this, personalized immunotherapies, I think it's important to say, how are we differentiated? It's a platform. We can take this to numerous diseases. At times, it's frustrating when you run a company and we hear the stories, and I was saying to my wife this morning, it's like, oh, there's, a patient with myasthenia gravis. Our platform could address that. Type 1 diabetes, that's an autoimmune disease. It's, mediated by T cell. We could do that too. So, the potential and the excitement to treat all these diseases is certainly there, and we believe scientifically we can do that. But then you have to balance this with, access to capital and, being a company that has to focus, and the shareholders say you have to focus, you can't stretch yourself too thinly. So how do you balance the, we know we can do that, or we think we can do this disease and this and this and this with, okay, one step at a time, because the capital's not available, the manpower's not available. So it's that frustration of wanting to do more and then seeing these videos, which, if you're not reaching for your tissues, then you're not human. But it's a balance there. But this idea of taking personalized therapies into individual patients has will have a remarkable benefit risk profile at the end of the day. You're heightened the benefit because these are tailored for every individual. We believe we've minimized risk because the side effect profile seems very clean. We're treating every patient with an individually tailored product here. And it's exciting in our trials, you get people that will be on the blog saying, this is so cool, I'm using my own cells to treat myself. It's like my cells are the drug. How cool is that? So you get a little bit of that kind of excitement from the patient, even though they have horrible conditions. So for us, as I said, it's an exciting time to be part of this. I think that cell therapies, we can see the great work that the foundation does and that Robin pushes forward. The future of cell therapies to treat enormous number of diseases, I think is there. We're right on the cusp of that, and we can see the wealth of talent and brain power, in this room alone and around the world trying to cure this. I think in the next decade and 20 decades and even before that, as I said, the next couple of years, when the data starts coming out, and I'm sure it'll come out positively, that's when we'll start to get people excited about this whole idea of cell therapies. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of this audience, and again, honored and privileged for the second time now. As I said, if we can bring a little bit of hope to patients suffering from some of these diseases. I said it's motivating to us to talk to Ali Guthie and her mom and dad and all the folks with secondary progressive that we interact with as well, MS. It's truly motivating. So again, if we can do our part and bring a little bit of hope to these patients, and more importantly, cures along the way for these diseases, then I feel we'll have done our part. So thanks very much for your attention this afternoon. I appreciate the chance to be able to do this. I am supposed to announce as well that you get time for another coffee infusion. So there's a break coming up, and I'm told that every one of you needs to be promptly back in your seats by 4:05 for the next exciting talk. But thanks very much for your attention.